Gucci, Gucci 2 times, say it 2 times. Gucci, Gucci 2 times, say it 2 times. Gucci, Gucci 2 times.
3 years old is transitioning into a female named Penelope. Okay, and we call those people idiots. The fact is that a child at 3 years old doesn't know anything about gender. The reason I say this is because I have a 3-year-old. Okay, a year ago, my daughter was very into boy things, which is not uncommon, right? She really liked buses. She really liked trucks. And now it turns out she really, really likes dresses, like a lot. In fact, this morning I got up and she wanted to be taken out of her PJs and she wanted to be put in the fanciest dress that we own with her ruby slippers from The Wizard of Oz. There is a genetic component to gender. In fact, it is the only component to gender. Okay, the idea that you have a small child and the small child who's 3 says, I am a boy. First of all, this makes no sense. Let me just explain why this makes no sense. If I say today, I feel like I am a chicken, right? I am a chicken. How would you even know? Right? How would I know what it's like to be a chicken? I've never been a chicken. It's impossible for me to be a chicken. It is not possible for a girl to be a boy. It is not possible for a boy to be a girl. No matter how much you say you feel like a member of the opposite sex, it's like saying you're a member of a different species, okay? You can't just say that you're a member of a different species because the fact is you don't know what it's like to be a member of that species. If a child says, I'm a boy, probably at 3 years old, the child is actually saying, I like boy things, right? I like trucks. I like things that boys play with. I like basketball. Does that mean the child is actually a boy? No, maybe it means that the child is just a tomboy. Right? We used to call kids tomboys sometimes. Does it mean that Penelope's actually a dude? No, of course not. And it's the best solution. I presume that when this kid hits age, they'll put in puberty blockers and prevent this young girl from becoming a young woman. They'll put in puberty blockers and screw this kid up for life. The fact is that 80% of all children who identify as the opposite gender grow out of it by the time they hit adulthood. And yet there's this societal pressure now that the minute your kid says, I'm a member of a different gender, we all say, oh, well, I guess you're a member of a different gender. You know better than science does. You know better than genetics does. You know better than the parents do. It's also why it's so dangerous for society to play this game where it is possible for it to be a solution for boys to become girls and girls to become boys. Number one, you're confusing kids. They're now trying to teach kids that boys can become girls and girls can become boys. Kids are very confused people. They're very confused little people. The idea that small children are capable of handling complex issues is just ridiculous. And so if you tell a little girl, by the way, you can be a boy, how many little girls do you think will say, you know what, I am a boy now, because I've been told it's okay for me to identify as a boy? And beyond that, how many parents are going to think it's morally virtuous for them to go get psychiatric counseling for a girl who says she's a boy, and then pretend that psychiatric counseling legitimates the movement from girl to boy? How many kids are going to get screwed up by this? The answer is a lot. The answer is a lot of kids are going to be screwed up by this. And it's a real tragedy. This is child abuse. And the fact the media celebrate this without any scientific backing whatsoever. The same people, by the way, who say that you can be a girl stuck in a boy's body say there are no differences between girls and boys. So how would they even know? That doesn't even make any sense. Or if you say that you're a girl stuck in a boy's body, but boys and girls have identical brains, if you say, as Caitlyn Jenner has said, I have a woman's brain, but the left says there's no such thing as a woman's brain, one of two things is true, okay? Either there is such a thing as a woman's brain, and then we can check whether Caitlyn Jenner has it, or there's no such thing as a woman's brain, and we can't, in which case it's ridiculous to suggest he has a woman's brain. But the left doesn't want to do either of these things. They just want to say self-identification is the new reality. This destroys reality. It destroys children. It doesn't protect innocence. It's child abuse. ABC News and the Associated Press are pushing very, very hard this new idea that young, tiny children should be able to determine their own gender. Oh, yes. ABC News has a piece today. It says, in some ways, Rainbow Day Camp is very ordinary. Kids arrive with a packed lunch, make friendship bracelets, play basketball, sing songs, and get silly. Whenever there's a story that starts this way, you know that it's going to go off the deep end very shortly, right? It started off like any normal day until Bob murdered his wife and fed her to the dog, right? All these stories, it seemed like a relatively normal place until it turned out to be one of Lenin's graveyards. Like it always starts that way. So it starts off, they packed lunch, make friendship bracelets, but it is unique from the moment campers arrive each morning. At check-in each day, campers make a name tag with their pronoun of choice. Some opt for she or he, or a combination of she, he, or they, or no pronoun at all. Some change their pronouns daily to see what feels right. The camp in the San Francisco Bay Area caters to transgender and gender-fluid children ages 4 to 12. Okay, so once you get to 12, I think that we can start having conversations about whether you are experiencing gender dysphoria. At the age of 4, if you're a parent sending your 4-year-old to a camp that is reinforcing gender identity disorder or gender dysphoria, whichever term you choose to use, you are doing something deeply wrong. I have a 3.5-year-old. It is insane to suggest that a 4-year-old is capable of deciding his or her sex. That's utterly crazy. And parents who are doing this are doing something deeply sinful, something deeply nasty to their own child. It is your job to guide your child. This idea that your child is supposed to lead you into something like sexual identity when they have no clue what sex is, have no idea what their genitals are for, don't have hormones, okay? It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. The enrollment has tripled to about 60 young campers. This is demonstrative of the fact, by the way, this is true across the board. It's true in Australia. It's true in Great Britain. Every place where the transgender movement has started to push, what they've seen is an enormous number. The number of kids who are now looking to transition has skyrocketed dramatically. Now, what the left would say is all these people were just waiting to transition, and now society's become more accepting, and you're seeing more of this behavior. Okay, or it is possible that gender confusion can be created by environment or exacerbated by environment. This notion that environment has nothing to do with sexual identity or sexual orientation or sexual behavior is just asinine. It's not true. Okay, there's been no evidence of this whatsoever. According to the left, sexual orientation, sexual behavior, gender, all of those things are hardwired, but sex itself is not hardwired. Sex itself is completely malleable. This is ascientific. It's actually anti-scientific. And to pretend that small children, 4-year-olds, should be going to camps where they are encouraged to revel in gender confusion is purely disgusting. It's purely disgusting, particularly since statistically speaking, 80% of small children who suffer from even gender identity disorder, right, actually suffer from it, grow out of it by the time they hit puberty. So just what a terrible society we're creating, or when we suggest that children ought to be making decisions about their own sex lives, but adults ought to be abdicating on that score. Really, really terrible. The article continues talking about a 6-year-old Gracie Maxwell was dancing in the sunshine as a Miley Cyrus song blasted from outdoor speakers. The freckled, blue-eyed blonde wore her hair in a braid on one side. Gracie's a boy, by the way. Once she could talk, I don't remember a time when she didn't say, "I'm a girl." It said her mother, Molly Maxwell, who still trips over pronouns but tries to stick to she. Then it grew in intensity. "I'm a sister. I'm a daughter. I'm a princess." We would argue with her. She was confused. We were confused. Living in liberal-minded Bay Area made it easier. The Maxwells found a transgender playgroup, sought specialists, and at 4-year-old let Gracie grow her hair, dress as a girl, and eventually change her name. What a joyous occasion. Yeah, it's a decision by the parents to allow this kind of stuff. It's a decision by the parents to revel in this kind of stuff and make themselves feel better as parents of this kind of stuff. Listen, I wouldn't want to be a parent who has a kid who has to deal with gender dysphoria or gender identity disorder. But for me to abdicate the decision to the 4-year-old is just... It's non-adult, okay? It's anti-adult, and it's anti-civilization. Okay, so this, unfortunately, is going to continue because the left is fully ensconced in its own navel-gazing with regard to the new civil rights movement it's created for itself. It's not a civil rights movement at all. It's a way of destroying childhood innocence. Okay, so we'll be back here tomorrow. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is which they disagree.
Yeah. Before I let you go, I want to get one thought from you on this issue of kindergartners being taught by their teachers about the transgender issue. And the parents, many of them for the Rockland Academy school, were outraged. They feel it's just too young to introduce these ideas to these children. But they really weren't asked whether or not that was okay before this happened.
It's despicable. It's despicable. I mean, the fact is that when you're teaching children about issues that are sensitive like gender identity, you would imagine that the parents should have some say in that, but there's been this newfangled attempt by the left to basically say we have to protect children from their own parents, that the parents are the real obstacle here. We know better than you to how to raise your own children, and we're going to teach them things that are absolutely contrary to science, like boys can become girls and girls can become boys. The idea that all of this is just genetically inbuilt, there's no evidence to suggest that all transgender activity, all gender identity orientation, all of that is genetically inbuilt and has no environmental impact at all. In fact, most kids who identify as gender confused when they're young grow out of it as they get older. And yet here you have a school that's basically saying to the parents, we're going to teach our false version of science to your children. And not just are we apparently they had a transgender party for one 5-year-old and taught the entire class about it at the same time. I mean, this is really despicable stuff. The idea is to protect the innocence of children, not to rip it away from them in the name of 5-year-olds making their own decisions about whether they're a boy or a girl.
When you're a kid, you're learning about all of these ideas and growing up and turning into the person that you're going to become. And we have seen that in some of these cases, encouragement to have, to go through the process of changing your sex at such a young age, this can only exacerbate those concerns among these families and for these kids as well. Ben, thank you. We'll be watching September 14th to see how it goes. Good luck to you. We'll see you soon.